Good evening. I'm Renee Ferguson with NBC5 Chicago. Thank you, thank you. I am so honored. It is truly, truly a pleasure to welcome you tonight to Movement in Motion, African American dance makers in Chicago. We're so pleased at tonight's attendance because it shows the interest in Black dance and those who have committed their lives to the promotion and creation of this amazing genre. Before we get our conversation underway, I would like to introduce our host for the evening. Please give a warm welcome to the president of Harris Bank Frankfurt, Mr. Michael Fisher.
Thank you, Renee. Good evening, everyone. It's great to return this year to welcome you to Harris Bank and to lend our support to this evening's program from the HistoryMakers, the nation's largest African-American video oral history archive. At Harris Bank, we embrace the concept of knowing and celebrating your history. In fact, we're one of the oldest banks in Chicago. And in today's world of bank mergers and acquisitions, we take great pride in the fact that we're still operating under the same name as our founder, N.W. Harris, and have done so for over 123 years. We also take pride, thank you. We also take a great deal of pride in our commitment to supporting the financial and cultural needs of the Chicago community. And internally, we have a significant commitment to African American leadership, such as Executive Vice Presidents Yasmin Bates and Michael Lewis. And our commitment is not just in saying it, but in putting our money where our mouth is. So when the HistoryMakers approached us about having a new home for its Black History Month program, we were more than delighted to lend a helping hand. So to our customers here tonight, we thank you for your business, and to everyone here tonight, we thank you for your presence. I believe we have a great evening in store for you. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to the founder and executive director of the HistoryMakers, Ms. Juliana Richardson.
Thank you. This represents actually a new venue for us. This program, previously we've been at the Chicago Cultural Center, so we want to really thank Harris Bank for all that they've done for us. I don't know if Gwen Rutledge is in the facility, but she really worked with us and made this happen. And we are eternally grateful to her for all the work that she did. I also want to acknowledge, we have a project going on right now at the HistoryMakers where we are trying to digitize and encode 400 of our interviews, which represents 40% of our collection. Because our vision is to have a digital archive, and right now we have about 3,000 hours of African American testimony on tape. And within the last 2 weeks, we've lost Ossie Davis and Milton Davis and Tyrone Davis and Earl Neal. And so we're in the process of trying to digitize and encode so we will have the searchable database. So if you wanted to look up a subject on Chicago dance, you could go exactly to any point in the video where that's found. I mention this because Harris Bank has been instrumental. Ed Williams, who was one of the senior African American executives here at the bank, even though he retired, he reached back and has actually pulled in a group of about 20 proofreaders, and we are like desperate right now. We're in sort of a race against time because we have a September 30th deadline, and I see in the audience one of our transcribers. Gloria, you want to stand up? She's been transcribing for us and pumping those things off, and Gloria and I go back to my early law firm days at Jenner & Block. Anyway, I want to talk about tonight's program, Movement and Emotion. It's actually our 5th annual public program in the humanities. And it's presented in honor of Black History Month. I want to thank our collaborative partners. As I said, tonight would not have been possible without Mike Roberts and Gwen Rutledge. Also, funding from the program came from the Illinois Humanities Council, and I'd like to acknowledge Christine Velitis, Angel Isagari, and Phoebe Stein. Last year, we actually worked with the Humanities Council and had a whole series of Brown versus Board of Education series. We want to thank Alice Posey Patch for our beautiful floor arrangements, as well as the Chicago Tribune, who promotes us monthly. And finally, we also want to acknowledge our exclusive airline sponsor, American Airlines, at The Only Way to Fly. Had to get that in. You know, they fly us around. You know, American Airlines has been flying us around since the beginning of the project, and the Hilton Hotels has been putting us up, and that's the only way that we would have been able to get to our 1,000 interviews of both well-known and unsung African Americans. You know, we are actually the largest, for people who've not heard me talk before, and if this is our first event, we have grown from a mere 70 interviews back in 2,000 to 1,000 interviews. So we're the largest in the country. I just got back from Atlanta, where we've opened an office right across on Sweet Auburn Avenue, right across from the Martin Luther King, his birthplace home, as part of the National Historic Site. And we also have a presence in Washington, D.C., and we're really trying to establish places right now. We want to nationalize our collection by regionalizing our efforts, and so a lot of people are paying attention to us, and we are on our way to amassing our 5,000 interviews. In January, I just want to mention a couple things. We had our first open house. It was sort of exciting for us for Martin Luther King's birthday, and we had a whole group come by. Alderman Tillman gave a really wonderful, touching tribute to Martin Luther King that day, and Charles Branham spoke as well. And we just this past Sunday, and I don't know if you had heard me talk about it, but we worked last year with Simmons Lathan Entertainment, and they actually took 40 of our interviews and created a DVD series that's going to be released. And they actually did reenactments, and it was very touching to sit in the audience because we had a younger group of people that evening and see how much it moved people when they heard stories that they had not known about. The other thing, we're going to be busy this year like we were last year. We're doing 3 evening with programs. That's our Hallmark Celebrity Interview on May 7th in Washington, D.C., we're doing an evening with Diane Carroll where Gwen Ifill, PBS Gwen Ifill, will be doing the interview. On June 18th, we'll be in Atlanta with an evening with Nikki Giovanni where she'll be interviewed by Pearl Cleage. And we'll be back here in October 21st with an evening with Jesse Norman. We're going with opera this year. And actually she'll be interviewed by Anna DeVere Smith. So that's, you see we have a lot going on. For those who've not visited our offices, I would welcome you to visit them. I see Gwen right at the back. Gwen, will you come down here while I call also? Can I get Crystal Foster to the stage? Both of you, come on over. Oh, please, no phones. Okay, that's okay. We're all family, but no phones. Gwen is who I was saying. Gwen actually was one of our first volunteers back when we did an evening with Harry Belafonte. She's been with us. She makes things happen. This whole evening is really because of her. And I want to acknowledge Crystal Foster, who's going to be sorely missed. Crystal has worked with me even before the start of the HistoryMakers, and I guess I can say every bird must fly, but there would be no HistoryMakers if it were not for her. And so I want to thank her. Thank you. I want to thank you, and when you call next week, she won't be answering the phones. But anyway, she's going on to Northwestern University, and she wants to go back to school, and that's the way it should be. So I just want to say thank you, Crystal. Thank you. And now, back to Renee.
Juliana, thank you for your amazing, wonderful vision. And for not just having the vision, but for really making it happen and doing something about it. We so appreciate what you've given us, which is this important ability to tell our own story. So thank you. Everybody give her the acknowledgement and a round of applause. And now for our program, Movement in Motion. The History Maker panelists who are with us tonight, Muriel Foster, Joan Gray, Joel Hall, and Najwa I, represent the very best of Chicago's Black dance community. And we are here to learn more about them, their interest in dance, how it started, as well as the stories behind their companies. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Movement in Motion.
We were a good opening act and a good act to put on before the star, because we would have the audience up here. So when the star came on, they just had it. They didn't have to work to pull the audience up. There was a theater called the Palace Theater in Rockford, Illinois, and that's where we met. Sammy was then with his uncle and his father, Sammy Davis and the Will Maston Trio, and that's when we first met Sammy. And it was through Mr. Dyer that he contacted them. We did tap, jazz, we sang, and we closed our act with gymnastics. And this is why we worked all the time. We had good wardrobe, we had good music. We were really like sisters. We were probably closer than a lot of sisters. And it made it nice though being on the road, because even if you didn't meet anybody that you liked or cared to deal with, we had each other, you know. So, and then to be on safety, we had always learned about safety in numbers. We used to have these guys taking all 5 of us out. People always say, well, how did you guys manage to stay together and to get along so well? I said, because there's no boss, there's no leader. Whenever I did shows, it was never African dance. It was always jazz, Afro-Cuban, calypso, Caribbean, tap, just some other styles, because I came out of the course line. And in the course line, you did everything, every style of dancing. I think Darlene Blackburn made African dance popular. Was why can't we do that kind of dancing on the stage? And why can't we do this kind of dancing? Why can't we teach it, teach this kind of dancing? And why can't we make people want to learn it? In April of '78, I told the dancers, and dancers all up about it, that we could go ahead and, declare ourselves as having a company. I learned fire dance in the Bahamas. How I learned it was a girl from Haiti there working with us. And whenever the main fire dancer couldn't head off, his night off, she would do fire. And so I used to say, oh, Jackie, you got to teach me how to eat fire. You got to teach me, give me some things to do.
And so she taught me how to do it. But nobody can teach you. I mean, you don't teach nobody how to put fire in their mouth. It's just something you have to do. It's actually giving us a part of our history, a part of our culture, giving us a part of our culture back, a part of our history back. You know, it makes us know about ourselves.
I was one of those kids that could always move well. I could always dance well. I could always, in terms of neighborhood dance, I could outdance anybody in the neighborhood. So for me, it was a natural, kind of a natural progression to move in that direction artistically, to the artistic end of dance. My company started as Chicago City Theater Company. It was co-directed by myself and Joseph Ehrenberg. Joseph Ehrenberg was my partner at the time. And he did the theater aspect of the organization that we had created, and I did the dance aspect. But we concentrated on doing theater that was classical theater, using Black and Hispanic actors in lead roles. And when I took the company to New York, I remember standing in the Joyce Theater opening night. My heart was in my feet with fear. I was so nervous that I was pacing downstairs in the dressing room before curtain, thinking, this is my opening night in New York. We went out on that stage and slammed it so tough that the reviews were incredible. They loved the company. My personal feeling is that everything emanates from Africa. The world, people emanate from Africa. So why not the dance? Everything is based upon Africa from the very, very beginning. Why not the dance?
For me, too, one of the reasons why I resonated so much toward it was coming out of my Black Panther Party days and even, you know, my rebellious time before. How do we change things? How do we impact people so that they take control? And, oh, okay, art and culture, you know, art and culture. And I was beginning to realize the power of music and the power of dance when Black children and Black people had an opportunity to see what was indigenous to us, you know, culturally as a people with the arts. And it hooked me, you know, it appealed to my sensitivities immediately, you know, in terms of, okay, this is Black. I want to be a part of this. We had really taken off in the Chicagoland area. We were doing block parties and funerals and weddings and naming ceremonies. And Gwendolyn Brooks used to refer to us, and it was such an honor as the community professionals and residents, you know, because that's how the company was building up its loyal following, by doing all of these grassroots neighborhood events. And it was really an honor. I didn't realize it as much then, but what a statement that was making, that people thought it was appropriate to have African dancing and drumming to commemorate an important event in their life. When we would go into school sometimes, the kids would be sniggering, you know, look at that, blah, they look like jungle boogies and all that stuff. But the minute those drums start and the dancers, I mean, the kids, the teachers, they would be, it was so positive that they had to give it up. They had to get into it. I never had an experience where we were rejected by audiences that we were performing for. You either had to be indifferent or you had to go, you either had to violently be opposed to it or you had to go with it. And for the most part, my experiences was that people went with it. And it was transforming for them. And I realized it was transforming for me because I didn't know anything about Black people. Not in terms of the history and culture and Africa, because I thought back to even in high school, but definitely in grammar school, a half a page in the history book, Harriet Tubman, George Washington Carver, that was what I knew. I didn't know anything in depth. And so dance and music was a way for me to even start learning more about who we were.
Round of applause for our history-making panelists. Sammy Dyer School of Theater and Dance Director Muriel Foster. Muntu Dance Theater President. Joan Hall Dance Theater Founder Joan Hall. And Najwa Dance Corps Founder Najwa I. A warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to our history makers. I'm so excited to do this. What fun to be up here, and I'm so honored to be here with you, people who can really move. Oh no, I've seen them, they can still. I've been watching them. All right. I guess the question that is on my mind as a person who really doesn't know or have any expertise in dance is, what are you doing when you're up there?
You're praying for a good performance. You're always thinking about what is happening, what you're experiencing with your audience, what your audience is getting from you, and what you're able to share. So it is a mutual exchange. I mean, we are giving as much as we are getting.
Okay. I know you're telling a story.
Yes. A story about what it's like to be on stage?
No. When you're on stage, what are you doing? What is that we ought to understand and appreciate that you're doing? I know we see you. Mm-hmm. We see your beauty, and we see your movement, and we see your grace. But I always feel like I know there's something else going on that I don't know about.
Well, sometimes for me, when it was especially a powerful performance, it was almost like a out-of-body experience in a way, because I would be looking at the audience and connecting with the audience, but it was almost like they weren't there in a sense, and the music would truly take me to another place, and I'm not talking about possession or anything, like that, but
go ahead now.
It was truly, the drums are powerful, and if they get inside you, you can do amazing things.
Yeah.
And I loved experiencing that.
So that's what we're looking at. The power of the drum in your case.
Yeah. And the music, whatever the music was, it was the music for me.
And Muriel?
Well, I didn't have the drum. But it was a good audience. It was like giving you a high. People say, oh, you look so cool when you're up on the stage. I said, but dancing, that is my high. I don't need any stimulants. It's the dancing that does it. I said, I love it. When I could be feeling ever so bad, but once I'd hit that stage, it was all cheese. And, well, I came up in that era, where you had the cheesecake. And it was...
Intermission, you go lay down on the floor. Showtime.
Yeah. But that audience, that was... And, we would have done it when we started out, the Dyerettes I'm speaking of, because I danced with an all-girl troupe. We would have done it for free. I mean, we loved it, and it seemed so strange that we were getting paid for doing something that we love so much. I mean, we wanted to go to Europe, and Sammy put his foot down there because they wouldn't put our money up in escrow. And he says, no, I don't want you to get over there and get stranded. But we were ready to go. We didn't even ask how much we were making or anything. We just wanted to go. So it's a wonderful feeling that you do get up if you are truly a dance.
And you're giving it back to your audience.
Definitely. And we feel you owe them. So like you can't either, like I say, if you don't feel well, you don't take that out
on the stage. You want to please your audience, so you're going to give it, your all.
Okay, and Najwa, you talked about fire eating, and that is something that I've seen in Africa myself, and that is courageous and amazing to me. What made you want to do that, though?
Well, as I said, I think you showed that I was working in the Bahamas, and when you're in the Bahamas, dancing, they don't always give you. They just have like a format. They don't always have the choreography. So when we have to do fire dance, they bring the sticks to you. You have to do something.
Uh-oh.
You got to do something with it. But then you got all the other dancers that's been doing this a long time. We came over to join the show. Everybody was doing everything you could possibly do with the fire, So when they bring you the sticks, you have to be real creative with it. What will you do? So I had thought of a few things. I had my own little tricks. And every time I come off the stage, somebody was saying that was mine, and so you had to start all over again. But I said, well, maybe I should be a fire dancer. That meant the fire eater. If you were the fire dancer, you had a chance to eat the fire. So of course, you had to learn how to do this.
What did that feel like, though?
Well, it's hard, but it's easy on the stage. See, on the stage, you don't think about it. You just do it. So that's why you don't practice it or anything.
It's like a dare.
Yeah, they show you how you wrap. The person taught me, she showed me how to wrap my sticks, what she used to make her fire, and then you just have to do it. So I did what I was supposed to do over there, putting fire to places I could put it. When I got back home, then I created my own fire act.
Okay.
Because I knew that was a way. I knew that was a way to make more money dancing if I had an act. Because I always worked in the chorus of mine. I always worked in a group, which I loved. But then in between gigs, I could always do fire.
Now, can you hear in the back? Are you not hearing? Okay,
hear
so
me?
audio folks, we got to hear what she's saying, because,
Can you hear me now? Oh,
your mic,
I don't think so.
is it off? Oh, yeah.
It is.
Remember?
Oh, I thought she turned it. Oh,
Let's see. It's on, and it's, I might not do this any better,
that's okay.
but, okay, be cognizant.
Oh,
of
okay.
that. Okay, all right. Okay, because we
Maybe-
got to hear you.
maybe-
So then,
Something happening here. Yes.
okay, so then, now can everybody hear? Okay, all right. So then, by definition, what is black dance? How is it different from what everyone else is doing? Okay, Joan, you're sitting there.
I knew somebody would ask that question. People have been trying to define it forever, and some people look at it as representing a certain cultural aesthetic, whatever the genre is, be it African dance or modern or jazz. There's something some people believe, and I happen to be one of them, about how the black body approaches movement. So one of the things, there's this commercial, I think it was Toyota or somebody did, that is, I thought it was a wonderful commercial, because you see this car driving down the street in the rain, and you see all these bodies moving in sync to the rain patterns. Anybody seen that?
Yeah,
and it
that's great.
reminded me of, when I was first starting to dance and be conscious of movement, just standing on the corner and watching brothers and sisters walking down the street and seeing the bodies in sync, with the environment. And it was like a picture to me. And I think there's definitely a way that our bodies respond to movement. And then other people think of it in terms of the style of dance. But I think my definition would be more broader in terms of how we approach movement, because black people are excelling in all genres of dance.
Right.
So,
Right.
if black people are doing it, it's
Actually, it all starts from black people. So dance in general, any form that you look at starts, again, from Africa. So anything that we're looking at or anything that we're experiencing in dance is really based in blackness. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that there are different aesthetics. There are the ballet enthusiasts and the jazz and modern and African dance enthusiasts, but all of it, to me, it's like Picasso, you know what I'm saying? It's still black art. So no matter where we're moving from, I think of it as black dance. And
Is
no
that
matter who's doing
acknowledged?
it. Well, I don't think it would be acknowledged generally in public, but I'm the first to say it.
All right. Okay. I got you. Yeah. And so from there, then, how did you figure that out? I mean, what were your influences?
Well, my influence was all based upon my culture and my people, because in the neighborhood, I grew up in Cabrini Green, so people danced every day. It was very much a part of our lifestyle. Black people have always been doing parties and enjoying movement. I mean, it's a very natural part of our existence and very much a functional part of our culture, whereas in Western society, we've learned that it is an art form, but the art form is really based upon functional movement.
As in movement for working, or what do you say when you say functional? Just walking down the street, or what?
Movement for celebration, movement for walking down the street, movement for everything that we do.
It's rhythmic.
That's what you were saying, Joan. Okay. Do you guys get that? That's I'm learning. All right. So then that whole concept that some of our parents had, that dancing is a sin, how did you work around that?
That was my grandmother. Renee asked me that question, how did you get past that? I said, well, she died. You know. I was released. But, I love my grandmother dearly because she was an artist in her own right, but she was a suppressed artist because she believed, she got, I don't know what she has a very interesting story, and one of these days I'll tell you about it, but her whole creative expression was just dampened down, and she in turn dampened it in us. She didn't want me to wear
Or she tried to.
right colors, don't.
She didn't succeed.
Right, she didn't succeed because little did she know, my sister and I, we would sneak out, go to the parties. We learned how to dance on the side, and after she died, then I really started actively pursuing dance. Want to know everything I could about it.
Maybe her spirit came back to you and said, hey.
She probably said thank you. That's what I think. She said thank you.
Yeah, you became what she had wanted.
Right. She was very creative.
Well, Muriel, when you were dancing, you talk about it being more of a form of entertainment at the time. Can you talk about how it's evolved from, say, what you do to what Joan does? And I don't put you all in the past tense because I know you all are still doing it.
Oh, yes, past tense is correct. Actually, there's a difference there. I look at Sammy Dyer at our school as a training center so that they can go to people like Joe, which my teachers do, to Muntu, to Najwa. We don't have a company. We teach kids starting from age 3 up to adult. And wherein the 3 of our other guests, they have companies. And I've always had teachers to go to Joe, like, Shirley Hall Bass, who was the director, my predecessor, and one of the Dyerettes. We would always tell the teachers, if you want to go and advance or get some advanced training, let us know and we'll pay for it. They'd always go to Joe. We're going to Joe. And it's a thing of, it's not selfish, it's very selfish to hold back a student.
It really is.
If you know that you've done all that you can do with them, it's only right for you to take and pass them on to someone who can take them to a higher level.
So you're pushing them out of the nest.
Right. So that's sort of the way it works. And we've known each other for years. I've just met Joan, and I'm very happy. We have one of your teachers now teaching at our school, Tasha. We sort of share. You've got one of our students teaching at your school. We attended Joel's workshop about 2 years.
So let me get this straight. I'm sorry to interrupt you. But I want to get to this point. You're collaborative then.
Yes.
You're competitive, but you're collaborative?
Right, we respect each other's. Yes, we are.
And
Yes.
You know, that's how we've had to be. You know?
Yes.
That's how our companies survive, you know, and that's how we as artists survive too. We rely on each other a lot. You know, we share resources, we share dancers, we share musicians, you know.
Yes.
We've had to do that, you know, because a lot of times the access to, I guess you could say, more traditional means of support were not there, especially when we were just beginning. You know, a lot of us, you know, I didn't know where to go look for support, actually. So the community, the artistic community, the dance community in the Black community has always been, my experience, has always been collaborative. It's always been, you know, what do you know and can you help me?
so let's talk a little bit about the history of dance. Joel, when you say it began in Africa, and that it's about movement, but then what else? How did it evolve?
Well, it evolved, well, all of humankind evolved from Africa, as we all know. So anything that develops any further, to me, that's why I say it's based on African movement. So historically, I think that we have in the, you know, tap began with pebbles between people's toes, young Black kids on wooden street or sidewalks. So, I mean, we've kind of evolved over the years in gaining more information about different forms and learning as much as we can. I know that at the Joel Hall Dance Center, all of the dancers are concentrated in all of the disciplines and learning as much as we possibly can, because what we're doing is we're going out to companies like, you know, other companies that are here in Chicago, or Alvin Ailey's company we might aspire to, or Philadanco, or any of these other companies that are in the country. So it's a very, the African dance community is a very small community, but it is a very productive, and we're constantly training new dancers, constantly turning over information and passing it on, because it has to continue after we're here.
So then, your earliest memories of dance, Najwa?
Mine. Professionally or earliest?
Early.
Okay, I think I first started dancing like Joan. We didn't necessarily dance in my home. My father was a minister, and it wasn't until he passed when I was 16 that I was able to break out. Okay? So we always laugh about that. But we started, you know, in our backyard. It was some dancers across the street from me. They were taken from Sammy Dyer's school where Muriel is. And then we had someone else that was taken from Mildred Hester. Remember Mildred Hester?
Yes.
Her ballet school on the south side. So we put together our little steps, and we'd have shows all summer. In the tent, in the girls across the street, in the back, the girls' backyard, we put up a tent, pitch a tent. In my backyard, we go up under the porch, a little concrete area that was no bigger than where we're sitting, and put on a whole production for everybody in the neighborhood. So that's where,
Under the porch?
in the basement with the sewer there. You know. So then I went from there to classes at the cultural centers in the neighborhood, the Park District, the Marcy Center, Newberry Center down on Maxwell Street. And then I went from there to Jimmy Payne, when I got about 12 or 13, to Jimmy Payne, downtown in the Fine Arts building at 410 South Michigan. where I stayed for 5, 6, 7 years with Jimmy, and also with Sammy Dyer. I got a chance to take classes with Sammy, and I had a chance to take classes with Sadie.
So that's the whole history of Chicago dance, isn't it?
Kind of.
Right here. Did it evolve, do you think, from entertainment to politics, though? At some point, did it become more than entertainment?
Well, I think how Muntu started, we really started under the name UHCC, Unifying Humanity Through Cultural Creativity. And it was, hence Muntu, right? Market that. But when the company started, it was more about an awakening consciousness about our African culture and identity. We happened to be dancers and musicians, but the raison d'etre was learning more about ourselves as a people and being determined. And, you know, we look at it really as, in that day and time, a revolutionary statement to be talking about African dance and music. And Najwa,
when you say that time, what time are you talking about?
This was 1972.
Okay.
You know, coming out of, we talk about it in terms of, that's when young black people in particular wanted to find out what's up with this black thing. You know, we were starting to demand to know more about ourselves, coming out of the protest movement, and the Black Panther Party had been there, the whole freedom marches and stuff were going on. So it was kind of a natural political movement to reclaim who we had been as a people, because as I said, on the video, we didn't know anything about ourselves in depth. So that made it a political statement.
That was a wonderful period, wasn't it?
It was a wonderful period.
Yes,
It was a wonderful period.
Yes, indeed.
Well, then where did, say, Catherine Dunham fit into that?
Well, Catherine Dunham was really the forerunner for a lot of us here in the Chicagoland area, coming out of St. Louis and working in East St. Louis. She was the person most of us aspired to, because she was the visible person, doing the different movies she had done. And I think she was probably the first professional dancer that I heard about, because I was watching some TV program, I forget, what's his name?
Tally Beatty?
Not Tally. He was a movie actor in a comedy. Anyway, my grandmother, who thought movement was a sin, mentioned that he had been a Catherine Dunham dancer. So I was like, oh, okay. But then I started learning about Pearl Primus and other black dance greats. And I think another...
in Chicago?
Darlene Blackburn, I was just going to say. She really put African dance on the map here in Chicago. So she was the first person to really break out and have a company, as far as I know, an organized company. Then we had Julian Swain, who was a key trendsetter in early black dance here in Chicago, although he would hit me if he heard me say it, because he's not that old. I mean, but he was definitely one of the people who started talking about a professional company and looking at it from a company point of view.
From really creating a company.
Julian and Darlene.
Right.
Okay, so Najwa.
And Lester Goodman with Joseph Holmes.
Okay. All right, and your influences, Najwa?
Well, going back to the 60s, what it was for me, I was dancing professionally myself, that's what I did for a living. And when we started talking about blackness, I thought, well, wait a minute, why am I doing all of this when everybody's going back to the roots? I want to go too. So then we started studying African dance and going to New York and studying African dancing with a lot of African instructors there, and coming back here and teaching African dance. At the same time, I always thought, though, that we needed to hold on to all of our dance styles and all, because it was all a part of our history. And I wasn't about to let my course line days get away from me, because I love that dancing. I love that traditional jazz, So what I did was, when we formed our company, I kept traditional jazz, tap, all of our black dance styles, and then added the African. So, because that was very important to me. It's very important to our history, and it's very important that we pass it on to the other generations. So we do have a couple of generations of dancers who know swing dancing, who know traditional jazz. When I say swing dancing, I'm referring to traditional jazz, the jazz that led into the jazz that we do today, not jitterbug necessarily, but jitterbug's included. So it's the dancing that you see in, say, Stormy Weather. If you ever watch Stormy Weather, like the dancers, they do a lot of the swing dancing in there. You mostly see, any dancing you see in there is either swing or tap. So that style. So I always thought that was good, and I just wanted to hold on to it. So my company is about the preservation of dance styles and techniques of different eras as it relates to the African American dance experience.
Now, how is Chicago dance then different from, say, New York or anywhere else?
I don't.
Joel.
Well, I think that nationally, every area of the country has its own style or its own influence in dance. There's definitely an East Coast style, there's a West Coast style, and there's a Midwest style.
Oh, what's that Midwest style?
Well, the Midwest style is based upon our culture here. And granted, it is, there are black people all over America, but we are different, we do different, we teach different styles of movement, for instance, in the Midwest than we do out on the West Coast, or on the East Coast for that matter.
One other thing I think is unique about Chicago and the black art scene in general is we have long-term dance institutions in Chicago. And they have them in other places, but we have more of them in Chicago. People in Chicago, somebody said it at a meeting I was at yesterday, that people in Chicago get things done. And if you look at the black arts, the black dance scene, Najwa, in excess of 20 years old, Joel's company,
30.
Over 30, Muntu, 32 years old, and if you look at the black theaters, ETA, I mean, we have long-term black institutions here. And I think that is a little bit different from what you find in other places. You may find one or two, but we've been around for a long time here in Chicago, and our organizations are still growing and still training new dancers.
Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I agree. And you told us then that this collaboration obviously is a part of your ability to continue to exist.
Yes.
But then what else is it about Chicago that's so unique?
People, you can make money here in Chicago.
Okay, let's get to
You
it
can make
then.
money.
All right.
You can make money.
Okay, let's get to it.
You can make money in Chicago.
All right.
And I think sometimes we get hung up on grants and stuff like that, which is, you got to have that too if you have a company, because you have expenses. But I think we've been successful, I think all of us being entrepreneurial in a sense here, because we'll do anything, to put our art out there and put it forward. Like Najwa was saying, dancing in the backyard. Well, I remember the first concert that Muntu did, even before I got in the company. Our first annual concert was 1976, and the company did everything. We made the costumes, we sold the tickets, we put up our own money to rent the place. So it was not a question of sitting back waiting for somebody to help us do something. We started it first, and then that brought other people to us. So I think that kind of, I'm not going to be deterred. Yeah, okay, I can't go right, but I'll go left. I can't go up, so I'll go down. It was a determination to keep going, and that kind of energy, I think, is what distinguishes our companies from other companies here in Chicago or wherever who throw in the towel.
Yeah, Harold Washington talked about that Chicago can-do spirit. That's what you all talked about.
That's what I'm talking about. He was right.
Okay, well then, where are you now? Are you on Easy Street?
No,
Can you show me where that's at?
not by any means.
I'm looking for it.
We're still looking for funding. Constantly looking for funding. But I think that, you know, the fact that Joan has mentioned that we have been around for as long as we have, I think what we're looking at now is how we will be able to maintain that and how we will be able to continue that long after any of us are here to do that. And I think it's very important for young black children to, or any children really, not only black children, but any children, to have a place to go where they can be trained with confidence and know that everybody in there is looking at them as being the same, and they are all moving at their own level to wherever they have the ability to move to. So that's always been the way with our community, and I think in other communities we've had a tendency to have to always try to prove ourselves or go beyond proving ourselves or be better than or think of ourselves as trying to compete with. But I think the best way of looking at it is that we've been able to compete with ourselves, and we've been able to think about each other and each other's survival and how we're going to be able to continue to do this. It's very, very important that we do it.
Muntu is in the process of building a new performing arts center at 47th and Greenwood. And thank you. And in addition to it being a home for Muntu, it really will be a home for all of our companies, because we don't have performance spaces that we can just go in. And the thing that excites me about what we're doing over on 47th Street is that it will be a center for black dance and music, you know. And we haven't had that in Chicago. I mean, we perform places, of course, but to have a place that we have a home, you know, and Muntu has a home, but our black dance community has a home. That's how we look at it. So
My husband and I are very excited about
Come on
that as we go by it every day, watching it go up. So you've told us about your experiences and in general. Are there things specifically that you can share with us, I think, to tell us how you've gotten past your worst day? Can you tell us some anecdotal stories about, I don't know, maybe your worst day, the things that happened to you and how you got past them?
Worst day or worst period in time.
Okay.
Well,
I know how that goes.
yeah. Well, you know, it's
Can last more than a day.
right. You know, with all the other, with us looking for money and trying to keep dancers and everything that's involved in having a company, I think my worst time was having to get knee replacements.
Oh.
You know, in the midst of needing to choreograph, and it was right before. Well, I had realized that I needed to train dancers, you know, to take my place, you know, eventually, and I was doing that, but it came too soon. And
How
I was
old
trying.
were you?
Oh, this was just 5 or 6 years ago. I'm sorry, 96.
Okay.
So that's 9 years ago when I had my first
It was too soon in
knee
time that it
operation.
would happen.
Yeah. And I was on a cane. I was on a walker, a wheelchair, the whole bit, you know. And nobody thought I was going to walk again, except me. You know, I knew I was going. But that was a hard time period because.
And how did you get over that? How did you overcome that?
Well, I had my knees done, had my first knee done, and that's what made everybody think I wasn't going to walk again. But then I had the second knee done, and then they both healed together. And I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be able to dance and all of that. I didn't know, so but the good part about it was the exercises that I had in therapy was the same thing we do in dance. And so I could do that real good, even with the knee cut open and everything. So I told all my dancers, I said, whatever I did to you over the years, I got it back. I got it back, because I had to do it, you know. But it was 6 months at a time that I had to be away, and my dancers held on. By the time I had the second leg done, though, I knew, to get them a little further. So now I really I have people that I'm training to do whatever needs to be done when I'm not there.
Okay, Muriel?
I had a spinal injury when we were dancing in the 50s.
Oh my goodness.
And
in the 50s?
yeah.
They didn't know what to do.
Yeah, right. And we had to lay off for about 3 months, and the doctor was saying that I probably wouldn't dance again. Needless to say, I finished a career in dancing. I did have to wear a back brace for about 10 or 15 years. That was a serious injury. And then I taught from 1960 to 1998, because I've been at Sammy Dyer since 1941. We are celebrating our 72nd year in business. We are the oldest school. So that was my worst.
Well, how old are you, Muriel?
I made 74 in January.
Oh, girl. Now, see, that tells you all you need to know about what dance can do for your body. Oh, you are so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and your worst day?
Oh, God, I've had so many. Okay, this one is kind of funny, but it was one of my first touring gigs with Muntu. And we were so excited to be doing this little festival outside in Cleveland, Ohio. And we were dancing on a grassy slope, barefoot. Anybody got a clue where I'm going? And we were doing, what were we doing? I forget the dance we were doing now, but whatever it was, it had a kind of leap step in it. And I saw everybody who was in the line in front of me leap and kind of lose their balance for a minute. I said, what's going on here? What's these people? So I thought maybe the ground was just a little bit rough. So when my turn came, I leaped and I looked down. Of course, I was in mid-step, so I couldn't stop myself. There was piles of dog in the grass. So you talking about, somebody said backstage, Najwa was saying, no matter how you feel, you don't take that out on your audience. So can you imagine, I mean, we played it off, but it was like, oh my God. I'm gonna have to go back here and bleach my foot. So it's kind of funny, but at the time that it was happening, it wasn't. But I think the absolute darkest day.
What's the lesson in that?
I don't know what the lesson was in that. That eluded me. Make sure you have your stage managers check the ground before you. Of course, we didn't have stage managers in those days.
You were the stage manager.
We were the stage managers. So it's kind of funny, but we were all quite disgusted, needless to say.
And your darkest day you were talking about?
My darkest day was in October 1983. The company was performing at the Cultural Center downtown, and our founding director, Elio Talbert, had been diagnosed with cancer. And we had been doing a vigil at the hospital, but we had this show, so we all left to go do this concert. And about noon, it was coming to the finale of the concert, and I don't know what it was, but the energy in the room just went somewhere else. And everybody, it was the most powerful show that I think we had ever done. And when we left the theater, we went right over to the hospital. And when we got to the waiting room, they said, we don't have an Elio Talbert in here. So we all ran. We just went through the security and ran to the back of the room and found out that at 12 o'clock he had died.
Right in the middle of your performance?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that was a hard period for us, because right then we were staging a piece called Wolaba, which was, we had brought a choreographer in from Senegal, Abdoulaye Camara, to set this piece on us. And Alayo had the central role. And it was opening in it was October when he died. It was opening in November. So it's like, everybody in the community was, what you gonna do now? Because Alayo had been, the mover and shaker and the creative vision. But God was good, and Kamara stepped in and took the piece. He took the role and ended up staying as Muntu's artistic director for about 10, 11 years after that. He didn't even go home. And he had just had twins in Senegal that he hadn't seen, but he was so committed to Alayo and what we were doing. So that was probably for us the darkest period, because, we weren't sure if the company was going to survive that, So it was difficult, but it was also strengthening, because here we are, and it's 2005.
Joel, you told me you dance for about 8 hours every day.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time doing it. Yeah.
What is it that keeps you motivated and going?
My dancers, my students, and each day being the day that it is, and realizing that I have this day makes it just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. And I look forward to seeing all of my dancers every time I walk into the studio and every time I walk out. So
you hope nobody collapses in between. How hard are you working them?
It's hard to get rid of me.
He's hard. He's a hard taskmaster.
Well, he must be if he dances 8 hours every day.
I am a dancer 24 hours a day. So the dance or movement part of it is just, although lately for the past couple of years it has been less physical and more mental and direct, being an artistic director, it still is very taxing, and it still is very demanding. And Vanessa, who has been my assistant for about, how long now? 25? About 25 years.
Stand up, Vanessa.
She has seen me go through a lot with the company, and all of it. Well, my two worst moments were the point that our studio burned down, and we didn't have any insurance. We lost everything within minutes, which was one of the biggest blessings that we've ever had. And
how could that have been a blessing?
Well, it was a blessing in that all that we had was destroyed. And so everything that we had to do from that point on had to be created and invented and made new. And had the fire not happened, we would not be where we are today.
So you're saying that was a cleansing fire?
That exactly. That is exactly the point.
Religious.
Fire can be cleansing.
Yes, it can be.
And Najwa had the right idea. Because well,
take it on in.
And I think the thing that can not be cleansing about it is the fear that would follow it. So as long as you embrace it and you're able to accept wherever you are or whatever is happening to you, I think that you're just a much better person for that.
Yeah.
And my dancers have learned that, and my partner has learned that. My partners have learned that, and I have learned that. So I am just pleased as punch and very thankful to be here today as we even speak at this moment. So.
And was there? You said there were two.
That was one, and the other point was when I lost my partner in life.
Oh yeah.
And that was a very, very devastating period. But since then, I have met another partner that is just the sun in the morning and the moon at night.
Yeah. So God has been good.
So God has been good to me, and it doesn't happen very often. It happens maybe once in your life if you're very blessed.
If you're lucky. Yeah.
And twice in your life if you're extremely, extremely blessed. So I have been blessed twice.
Well, we're very happy for that.
Thank you.
Now, in the headlines, we have seen that the Dance Theater of Harlem has had serious financial troubles and closing at one point. Why did that happen to such a prestigious organization? Anybody? Muriel?
Possibly poor management, I don't know.
I'll take it on.
You know?
All right, Joan.
Well, Mr. Mitchell, Arthur Mitchell, is the artistic director
Yes.
of Dance Theater of Harlem, and he has, over, I believe it's been about 45 years, developed the African American ballet company in the United States of America that represents African American ballet throughout the world. The other company that we all know about that does similar is Alvin Ailey's company, Mr. Ailey's company, who does modern. So Mr. Mitchell is an artistic director who was leading his organization and needed some financial assistance from the overall community. Any company that's been around 45 years should have that.
In place, an
Automatically.
endowment, or you're
an
saying-
endowment, but as African American artists, we are not usually used to directing those kinds of things ourselves. What we're used to doing is going into the studio and creating our work and putting it on the stage. So now Mr. Mitchell has had someone come to his assistance to help him out of the situation that he is in. We still, fortunately, are able to have Dance Theater of Harlem around.
As the school.
As the school. And now Mr. Mitchell is dealing with the artistic direction and now has a financial officer dealing with other aspects of the organization. And I think that a lot of times as artists, that's where we have a tendency to fall short in being financial wizards, because we are more about creating movement. So we're not thinking about how we're going to pay for it. We're thinking about how we're going to get this dancer to do this movement the way we need to see it done today, so that we can get it on the stage. So our whole orientation to finance is very different than other organizations which have had the backing and financial institutions supporting them along the way to make these things happen for them. And that's what we have to gain in our community. We have to gain that kind of financial support from institutions that want to see us here. It's very, very important that we do that.
So institutions and not just individuals.
Institutions
and individuals.
Individuals is a key piece.
That is the key
Because
piece.
funding sources are,
Can leave
They're
you.
diminishing.
they're fickle.
They can
Yeah.
leave you.
They have their
If you're-
interests, and that's fine. So what we all need to do is to cultivate that individual support, because that support is what will sustain you. If you can build a body of people who believe in your work and who want to support it and who bring their families and their kids and then train their kids to be art supporters, that's much more. It takes a long time to do that. It's much easier, to write that grant, but developing relationships and cultivating relationships and building lifelong donors takes time. And when you have no real staff or one staff person, or you're busy being the artist and doing that kind of work, you make a choice, you know, do what takes the least amount of time? How many things can I get done in a day? So it's really a question of infrastructure, you know, and I think somebody said to me, you know, the difference between I'm gonna say it wrong, so I won't even go there.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, the difference between a dreamer and an actualizer is resources. So you can dream all you want to, but if you don't figure out how to actualize, then you might as well just stay asleep.
Yeah.
You know, stay asleep.
That's a very good point. And you know, that is not to diminish the importance, though,
Of the dream.
of the dream.
You gotta have a
And
dream.
that is
You
not,
got to start there.
yeah. And that is not also to diminish the importance of the understanding that that we are institutions as well, and that we must still attract the financial support of major institutions in order for us to be able to continue to do that.
It's a partnership.
It is a partnership,
definitely a
exactly.
partnership. And I
So
think-
both are very, very, very important
Absolutely.
in making that work.
It must have been a really frightening day, though, when Dance Theater of Harlem, which is this institution, appeared to be on the
was
verge
shocking,
of collapse.
yeah.
It was shocking.
Yeah.
Do you think that that would have happened to the, I don't know, the
American Ballet
American
Theater?
Ballet Theater?
Well,
Maybe.
yeah. Yeah,
It could
That-
happen.
that's
it
a-
could
there's a
happen.
possibility.
Because if it wasn't American Ballet Theater, it might have been New York City Ballet who went through a period.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their
Joffrey came here.
and Joffrey came here, and because one of the guys from American.
I'm sorry.
What does that mean? Go ahead, Najwa. Go ahead. Say it. Out with it. Out with it.
No, I'm just thinking, we all have to survive, that's all I was thinking,
bottom line.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
not very much money here.
You're saying you
I
have to
said
survive.
It's not very much money here. We all trying to get some, to keep going,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I need to move to New York.
Well, Dance Theater Harlem was trying to come here, so.
And
Let's
then
stay
Dance
out
Theater of
Chicago.
Harlem wanted to come here.
They were thinking about coming here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a thought going out.
Yeah.
But one of the things that one of the administrators for the ballet company said was they looked up and they realized they had forgot about their individual donor base. So you gotta have that marriage, as Joel was saying. The Illinois Arts Council, the Department of Cultural Affairs, those were the first grants that our organizations were probably able to get.
Sure.
And then National Endowment for the Arts. And, just being steadfast in that, foundations started to pay attention more, to some of our organizations.
So
but
let's
God
talk
bless the
about
child
legacy.
who's got his own.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. I understand that. But there are not that many children who got there.
That's not that many, but
Let's talk about legacy.
I'm trying to have my own.
I know you got. We all have our own, but then there's having your own, and then there's having your own, and all that,
And it's having your own.
and that 300 years of free labor gave you. But we won't go
Well,
there.
no, we won't.
All right, let's talk about legacy. What would you like it to be? What would you like yours to be, Muriel? And the legacy of dance in Chicago. Where do you want to see it going? And what is it? What
Commitment.
do you want to see
a
more
lot of
commitment?
More commitment, more dedication, discipline. I think a lot of our younger dancers, they don't adhere to discipline too well.
You're saying they are not as disciplined?
Right, right.
What does that mean?
Dance is discipline. And to be a good dancer, you have to be able to accept the constructive criticism. You have to go over and over. Dancers now, if they've taken and know their right from their left, they think, oh, why do we keep doing that step over again? We already know how to dance, and they've just learned their right from their left. But they don't want to repeat. They just don't like the discipline. The talking in class, being respectful of your co-workers, your team workers, if you're in class and everybody is quiet while you're in, but then you go out talking aloud and so forth, it's that type of discipline, you know, that, well, when we came up, and like I know I go way back, but the discipline, and in fact, Mr. Dyer and the teachers that we had, they didn't spend any time disciplining us. And now we're going through the same thing that our school teachers are going through in education. I mean, we spend half of our time disciplining, you know, and that shouldn't be in dance, because dance, education, they have to go to school. They don't have to take dancing.
Right.
So you would think when they came, we wouldn't have to be arguing and telling them why you're wasting your parents' money, you know, which they don't care, you know. I mean, you have to teach them to be appreciative of. We were really taking dancing. I thought I was rich, you know, being able to take dancing lessons. These kids take it for granted, but then they have all these different extracurricular activities that they are involved in, but parents are making more money now, so they can afford to do it. But I think we should teach them that once they start something, that they must commit to it
And they must finish it,
you know, and finish it, you know.
That's a wonderful point, Muriel, that you're making, because we look at the same thing at the school with kids coming in, and it's not tolerated. We do not tolerate it. If it's not disciplined, you're not coming in. We'll stop you, and we will call your mother up and tell her to come get you. Okay, and we will not put up with it. And I think that if we keep that kind of discipline going and that kind of attitude, I think that children have to learn these things.
Oh, yes.
And many times we're not teaching that. So, but not being afraid to teach it, just say, no, you can't. Or yes, you can. And really, you know, young people are very, very intelligent, and we really have to give them a lot more credit than we do for their abilities in discipline, because discipline is something that we teach. We all know what that is. And we have to let them know what that is in order for them to understand it. If we don't let them know, they don't get it. Because no place else in society does it say that they must be disciplined other than to push that button on that computer or to do whatever they're going to, you know, go out and be stars by osmosis. You know, it'll seep in. We'll just send it to you without the work that's involved in becoming the dancers.
So you're working with these students' brains.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Their bodies are become athletic and dance bodies, but you're really working with their brains.
And they must have brains to dance.
You got to have brains now.
It's a very demanding discipline, because not only must you dance, but you must know the history of dance, and you must be able to articulate yourself and to speak intelligently about it.
And repeat a movement on the right and the left.
We demand that
and she said, and repeat a movement on the right and the left.
And the right, and reverse
it. It's called transposing.
And reverse it.
And reverse it.
Okay. So then we get people who have a love for what it is they do. Yeah. They have an understanding about what it is. Yeah. And then they want to do that themselves. And it's not about money, it's about the art. Once you learn the art, the money will be there.
You know, it's very interesting because I was having that very conversation with my son the other day about not being money driven, but being driven to do the best he can at the thing that he does, and that the money would therefore follow. But then as I was saying it, I'm not so sure.
Well, that's the ideal. Yeah. Hopefully, you know, a lot of times it happens, but it happens when you have a commitment as an individual artist or the leader of your organization to make it happen. It's hard, and that's what distinguishes successful dancers from good dancers who nobody knows their name.
Yeah.
You know, there are plenty of good dancers out there who we'll never know who they are. You know, we'll never know them because they weren't able to make leap, and not through sometimes lack of trying. You know, it's just that sometimes the obstacles you face in doing your work are insurmountable for you. You know, it just depends on what that person comes to it with. So it's not, I tell young dancers all the time, we had a young dancer who was in my office the other day crying her eyes out because the artistic director snapped at her. Get over it. You know, it is not, we're not gonna hold your hand through this, because if you're choosing to be a professional artist, especially in dance, you gotta toughen up.
You got to be able to take rejection.
You got to take rejection, and you got to have stick-to-itiveness. And if you're going to fall apart because somebody hollered at you because you made the same mistake 30 times, then you need to find yourself another career. It's not for everybody. It's not. You know, it's not for everybody. And, you know.
Do you tell some students, hey, you just don't have it?
I try to. My artistic director, even though she's rough, she's a wuss. But no, she's a very committed teacher. But, you know, we try to, yeah, sometimes we have to tell them. Sometimes that's the reality.
I never tell them. I never tell them, but I encourage them to be at their best. And if their best is not good enough, it works itself out.
Yeah.
But I always encourage
You mean they
them.
come to it on their own at some point?
Yeah, they
never
figure it
know.
out because it's so hard. It's so difficult. And if you're not able to do it, you just won't make it, you know? So I let them, they weed
You mean
themselves
like
out.
physically?
Physically, I think spiritually, I think emotionally, in every aspect of life. It's, you know, a full-time commitment. All these
hard work.
It is very hard work.
hard
It's
work.
very people
You don't
think
have a heart for it, you need to move on. And we've had to tell some people because, you know, our artistic director, Amani Payne, is very demanding, you know, but she's the most kind-hearted person, so, you know.
She leaves it up to you to tell her.
Well, no, she doesn't. She, you know, she gives young artists in particular, she sees something in a young artist, and she gives them ultimate opportunities to realize their promise. But after a minute, you know, you can tell those artists who, and it's not always the best dancers. It's not always the best dancers. It's the dancer who wants it the most, you know,
like
because
everything
then
else
they
in
will
life.
become excellent. The dancer who sometimes has that natural talent and has been, you know, oh, you're so wonderful, and you know, they can't take it when a new choreographer comes in, or we have Joel come in sometime and teach for us. If they can't get it right away, they don't want to do it. Right. So I don't have time for those kind of dancers. You know, I'm not interested in those kinds of dancers, because I'm interested in the dancer who wants it bad enough to, you know, to cry for it, and, you know, feet bleed for it, and, you know, if it's not any money, they'll still want to learn it. You know, we're in a different place now as artists than when I started out. I was like Muriel was saying, ooh, somebody's gonna pay me money to do something I love. It's a different time now, you know, and I think one of our responsibilities now with companies is to make it better for young dancers who are coming, so they don't have to be at subsistence, you know, monies to do this work. So that's part of what I think companies do. You know, we provide a way for individual artists to have a path, you know, so.
Well, I'm very greedy about talking with all of you, but I'm supposed to open this up to the audience. So we have microphones on either side if you have burning questions that you would like to ask. Now is the time to please go to the microphone. Otherwise, I get to keep talking and asking questions. Okay.
Hello, just go ahead.
Uh-huh.
Thank you all for being so open about who you are and what you do. I have one general question that is kind of an extension of the legacy question, and that is, I'm curious as to whose legacy individually each of you thinks you're carrying forward.
That's a good question.
Yes, I have a mentor, Julian Swain. He nurtured me through dance. He taught me, he made me understand dance as he did many, many, many dancers, and a lot of them I see in here. He taught us jazz, he taught us everything, modern, African, Caribbean, and he told us that we have our bodies. You don't have a typewriter. And once you go up on the stage, you cannot erase this. You can't redo it, you can't white out, you can't, you can't redo it. So you have to do it well, because there's nothing you can do. You're only as good as your last performance, so you must do your best. And it takes me back to the very first question you asked us, what do we think when we're on stage? Whenever I even walk out on the stage now, I think I can't erase anything. You gotta do your best, because it's said, or it's done. And I train my dancers like that when you go up on this stage, you can't undo this. You gotta know what you're doing. You can't erase it. Once it's there, you're only as good as your last show. So that's how I think I'm just passing on Julian's legacy, is to try for continued excellence in the dance.
Muriel?
Well, we most definitely are carrying on Sammy Dyer's legacy. He opened the school in '33. He passed in 19.
You can't hear. They can't
I'm
hear you
sorry.
in the back. Hot up her mic. She's soft. But that's all right. No. Let them do it. You keep going.
Okay. He opened the school in '33. He passed in 1960. We not only learned from him how to dance, how to present ourselves on stage, he also taught us how to conduct ourselves off stage, that it was just as important for us to be ladies. He reinforced, or gentlemen, he reinforced that which our parents had taught us. And then when he passed the school on to, he left the school to Shirley Hall Bass, who was one of the Dyerettes. And she just took the school to a higher level. He made an excellent choice, because of the Dyerettes, she was indeed the most creative. I was a business person, good dancer, but the choreography and staging the show, that was Shirley. So actually right now, I would say it's a combination of both Sammy and Shirley Hall Bass that we are carrying on this legacy, because they were great role models. The children loved them. Shirley could be a grouch, but everybody loved her to death. Sammy was the sweetest, kindest, most loving. He used to always say, if I'd ever been married, I would like daughters just like you guys. And we used to say, "Ooh, us," But they left, he left a mark on us. It was mandatory when we took from Sammy that you take ballet, which now in a lot of schools you don't have to take ballet. But we do know, and you who are dancers out there know, that that is the foundation for all dance. And we still have it mandatory that you take ballet. Tap, acro, all the other subjects are optional, but they have to take the ballet. So basically, I am, and we are carrying on the legacy of Sammy Dyer and Shirley Hall Bass.